What it do, everybody? It's your boy King Crowder, checking back in with another edition of a new topic or history point that we do not discuss. Today's talking point, I think, is really impactful because it goes strictly on the Black plight in American history. But I want you to also know how much the name change of Black Americans has been over the past since the transition of American history to the 17th century. The one thing I want to break down is over the time periods on why the names change and how come we were referred to different people during different times when it comes to trial slavery, Reconstruction, the movements after that, and currently where we are right now. I want to start back at the very beginning. Around the 14th century, you can see a lot of times mostly in the Spanish history, that anybody of opposite of white ethnicity and race were labeled as colored. You began to see this word pop up a lot around the 14th century. And it was also one of the things that was really copied and used in Jim Crow South. The reason why this word was used because it was a way to differentiate anybody in the social hierarchy within America. The reason why this is such a prominent word was that it was a way of keeping status quo on what group, what ethnicity, and what class you belonged in. We also must remember, race is a social construct to classify individuals and label others. That's all the main thing I always let people know what race is and when you have that conversation. The word Negro is actually a Spanish and Portuguese word. The word was used to shed light on Blacks, and it was also adopted in the British colonial societies to talk about Blacks and American Indians. We had many different words, but the word Negro was the one that whites gave the Blacks in an area to describe who they were. Of course, we also know the words Negro in Spanish means Black. The reason why these words tend to go off each other, you can begin to see how the name titles and what we called each other throughout history. I like to go over the word next. Is African American. African American was actually a word created by Jesse Jackson. Most people don't know that. This word became predominant around the mid-1980s. The reason why this word became a big figure because they want to know how we should label us. Jesse Jackson blatantly pointed that out because genetically we're ancestrally linked to Africa, which is correct. However, Jesse Jackson wanted a label because he wanted to remove the disparaging look of that word Negro. Negro was becoming a different word towards the older society, and the younger generation did not want this. They wouldn't believe in going by that saying. What people mostly don't know is that during the civil rights era, especially with the Black Panther Party, the word Black began to be associated with Black Americans in the United States. They actually named themselves calling themselves Black Americans or Blacks in America. But the word took a stigma off later on just because the Black Power movement was such a strong effect. Many people were kind of feared of the Black Power movement because of what it stood for and the other cultural ideologies that you can hear reference to it. But the word Black, I like to let everyone know, really became around in the 1960s. There is a new way of word that is being associated, as you can hear now, called Foundational Black Americans, FBA. Foundational Black Americans has a similar ideology of the Black Panthers. It's basically going into the cultural lineage to differentiate each other, saying we are not of African ancestry. What we are Blacks living in America for over 300 to 400 plus years and centuries, let us say. Of course, we acknowledge our Africanism because we all originate from Africa. But the best example I can give is that we don't call Jamaicans African Jamaicans. We call them Jamaicans. We don't call Latinos Spaniards. We call them Mexicans, Guatemalans, whatever country they have transitioned and go into a new name. So the FBA title is a way to say, even though we love Africa, which is a prominent where we come from, we look at Africans as a cousin in a relative hierarchy. Most Blacks in America originally come from America due to chattel slavery. If you do your genealogy in your ancestral lineage, you can trace yourself to see, I've been over here for almost 10 generations of people. You can find yourself and trace your heritage if you do the work to see where you come from. The reason why FBA is a term that's really going to be predominant in our lifetime and on is because we want to show that the Black cultural effect will be studied. You also want to separate yourself from other groups, and you also want to develop a own cohesive culture. One thing that the FBA thing is doing is self-identifying who we are as Black Americans. Black Americans are removing that African title now and are really transitioning to how to label themselves, especially when you're petitioning these new laws and legislation coming into the United States. I definitely think these words should be learned about and known throughout history because they're really, really hot talking points. But you can see the cultural relevance changes roughly every 50 years. You can see the transition and pivot that start to happen. So you can see the self-identification of how Black Americans label themselves is really becoming a new title. But I think it's here to want to stick. And because it is such a big thing, it is teaching how to stay relevant in the current Black history. All right, just me checking out again. I just want to give a little overview of this topic. I think it was incredible to learn and incredible to know. The information here is to help you understand the cultural relevance and when you're hearing these new words and new understandings. That's all I got for you today, baby. FBA, peace.